imagine, if you will, that it's 1906 and you are an internationally renowned composer and you're looking to write your master work, the work that you will leave behind you and that will be played and renowned for centuries to come. This is what Ravel was reflecting on in 1906. He was annoyed to a certain extent that his most famous work was something which he even said himself contained no music. And he really was looking for that special piece that he could be really, really proud of. And he chose the format of a piano concerto. Now, Ravel, we know, is a stickler. He's a perfectionist. And he must have been reflecting on all the piano concertos that had been written before him. Let's just have a look what his competition would be. You have, for example, Mozart with his 21 piano concertos, which we know he wrote with his own hand. And we'll come back to those in a minute. Then you have Beethoven with his 5 gargantuan concertos, real masterpieces. Brahms with his piano concertos. And then, of course, there's Grieg. This is not in any particular chronological order, just for things I'm thinking about. The great Grieg piano concerto. And then you have Tchaikovsky, of course. I think he wrote 4. The first one is very, very popular. And, you know, those were big works. And then, last but by no means least, we have, of course, Rachmaninoff. So this is a mountain. I mean, I haven't even mentioned some of the others like Chopin. So this is what he's up against. And when he's reflecting and pondering on this, he went back to Mozart and the format of Mozart, the construction of Mozart, the 3 movements, not too long. In fact, this concerto is only about 21, 22 minutes, just like a lot of Mozart concertos. It didn't need to be pompous and bombastic. Ravel didn't want it to be pretentious. That's not a word that he used, but he didn't want it to be an intellectual exercise. He wanted it to really to entertain. He wanted to engage people, draw them in, give them excitement, give them fire, give them all the passions and emotions that we as humans go through. And this is exactly what he set out to achieve. And today, to illustrate this, and to illustrate why I think this is one of the most beautiful concertos ever written, one of the most perfect concertos. Now, obviously, the idea is that it's question mark, and the most amazing and beautiful concerto is normally the one I last heard live in a concert hall. Anyone that gives you wow. But this one, when you look at it, when you break it down, when you analyze it, you just realize how amazing it is. And yeah, it's popular today, but if you don't know this piece, you're in for a real treat. Now, I've chosen 6 pianists and orchestras to represent this work, and I will be switching between one and another, and there's some quite challenging parts. It's written for the piano in a way that my pianist friend Tony reminds me is actually pianist friendly. It's not a really, really difficult piece like the left hand concerto he wrote for the left hand. That's really quite challenging. In fact, so challenging I think Ravel even couldn't play it with only one hand. No, this is written as a piece of music which and I should have mentioned it earlier, a little bit about Mozart here. In Mozart's piano concerto, it's in the Jeune Homme, which is, I think, number 9, and then later on in his later concertos, Mozart was aiming to write a piece of music that wasn't a fantasy for piano, la la la, with the orchestra going pa 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 in accompaniment. No, he wanted it as a complete orchestral symphonic work, a work not piano and orchestra, but orchestra with piano, that they all were symbiotic. And even if the piano is playing solos, it's kind of still a part of the main thing. And this is where Ravel stepped in at. This is what he was trying to achieve. But Ravel had one advantage over all his competitors, and that is his ability to orchestrate. His ability to be able to get so many colours and tones out of an orchestra. It's quite incredible. And there are moments in this work where, for example, a flute will pick up with the piano, and then gradually the flute will be taken over by an oboe, and then the oboe will fade into a clarinet, all in the same phrase. And what it is, it just gives you this beautiful tonality. You don't even notice it until you listen really closely. And for me, this is the genius that Ravel is and has. And this is what makes it very special. Now, I know it's a bit challenging at times, but stick with me, stick through it, because when we get to the second movement, things will happen that if they don't move you, then I really don't know what piece of music ever will. So let's open, and I've chosen Christian Zimmerman with Pierre Boulez, the famous French composer and conductor, with the Cleveland Orchestra. It's recorded in 1994 on Deutsche Grammophon. It's quite a dark recording, and I think that's a deliberate thing because a lot of the Deutsche Grammophon recordings are not like this at around this time. And I think it's to illustrate the depth of this music. But anyway, let's start. Now, it starts with an almighty clap. And it's quite tricky for conductors because it's got to be exactly together. And when you look at the screen on this particular recording, you see this nice straight line on the Katchen recording as well, which indicates that they're exactly together. And that is a challenge. So the whip, as it's called, the instrument's called a whip. There are other names for it as well. It's not actually a whip itself. It's just two blocks of wood, really, that you whip together like this, and it makes a clap. And the piano and the rest of the orchestral instruments that are written have to start playing at exactly that time. So let's start off with Christian Zimmerman and hear what he has. You see the piano and the orchestra are all together. No one is dominant. Now, Ravel doesn't leave us long before he goes into this beautiful, calm passage, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, what an opening. I think it's interesting now to pick up on a 1958 recording by Leonard Bernstein, and he's with the Columbia Symphony Orchestra here. Now, he had recorded it earlier in 48, but this is the recording I wanted to focus on. And what is interesting, that Leonard Bernstein, being a conductor and a pianist, he decides to conduct this work from the piano, which is a big challenge. And actually there is a bit of video of him somewhere, we'll try and throw it up, of him, and he's taken the lid of the piano off completely and he's moved his piano right into the middle of the orchestra. And you can see why, because just getting this opening bar correct is going to be a challenge in itself. So let me just play for you the opening sequence from Leonard Bernstein. The piano is more prominent, don't you think? And he's going to be a whoosh. quite a different sound. Now, obviously, it's recorded earlier, 59, obviously. It's not digital, it's analog, and it's quite an airy sound. But I've also chosen for you, that's better. I've chosen for you a version by Martha Argerich. And Martha Argerich, or Martha Argerich, if you want to say it in maybe a more British or American accent. Brilliant pianist, maybe considered to be probably the greatest pianist alive today, or one of them, certainly. And here she's playing live in the festival in Lugano in 2016. There is another recording of her playing in 2011 in Lugano, so don't confuse the two. This one is by Alexander Vedernikov. Vedernikov, there's a better way of saying it. Apologies, everyone. Playing with the Orchestra della Svizzera Italiana, which just means the Orchestra of Swiss Italian. And of where Lugano is. It's in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, of course. So this is a live recording. Let's hear how she handles this opening, and listen for these glissandi with the piano, and see how, because it's live, she can really exaggerate, if you like the term. Now, I really like this version, and it also shows what she's capable of live. And she's recorded it live many times, and there's lots of YouTube videos of her playing live. And I just think it's, you know, it's a good recording, and the audience are relatively quiet in this one, which is always a benefit. But you'll see as we go on and as we progress how it varies from the others. Now, I want to go back to Zimmerman with Pierre Boulez, and we're going to go a little bit further in to the first movement, where the fire of the opening is just giving way, as we got a hint of there, to this temporary, wonderful and mysterious tranquility and beauty, which you're getting so early on in a piano concerto. A little bit annoying here, if you listen very closely, you can hear Zimmerman humming, which it's not so bad that it's really annoying, but it does annoy me sometimes in recordings that people kind of don't just point out. And it's quite common. I've had it before with pianists where you have to politely say to them, do you notice that you're actually humming? And then and they don't even know they're doing it themselves. Well, it might be him, maybe it's Pierre Boulez, I have no idea. But let's listen to Zimmerman a little further in. What you will notice with this version is that the timing is so perfect with the Zimmerman and Boulez. Listen to the timing here. You can count it perfectly. Right, left, right, left, right. So tight here. We'll come back to that run in a minute because that's a classic part. But it's brilliantly performed, that. I mean, it's a wonderful piece. So I want to take now to Argerich in exactly the same place to see how she manages this. I want you to notice the amount of air she's going to give it, this sort of openness of it. And she creates her own space and her own timing. But then when you get to that quicker section, she'll jump right back in. So when she's doing this, it's choice. It's her interpretation. All the pianists that I've chosen are outstandingly gifted pianists. When they're playing something differently, it's not because they can't do it like one of the others. They're doing it this out of choice. So let's join Martha Argerich in the same place. Again, we're going to come back to that in a minute. So it's quite a different performance there. And yeah, obviously you need to decide which one you prefer. And it's great it's fine to like both. You know, they're both very, very different. Now, I want to introduce you to a recording that I first discovered when I was about 16 years old. A girlfriend of mine was working for Decca at the time, and they were clearing out some old cupboards and office spaces, and there were cupboards full of very early test records, and she brought some back for me, and amongst them was this one, and it's Julius Katchen with Istvan Kertesz and the London Symphony Orchestra, and it's recorded in 1965 by Decca in the Kingsway Hall. Now, the Kingsway Hall in London no longer exists, sadly, but it was a brilliant acoustic for recording, and the Decca often used their classic Decca tree system, which is what I still use today, which is a big pole with 3 microphones above the orchestra. It sounds great, the orchestra above. And anyway, so the quality of this recording is fantastic. And the thing is that this was the first time I'd ever heard this piece of music. So over the years, Julius Katchen's way of playing was the only way for me. And this is quite a difficult work to accept other versions. So this research that I've been doing has been great for me emotionally, intellectually, because I've got to love so many other performances. But Julius Katchen was really a perfectionist, and timing again and expression absolutely brilliant. Have a listen to this and see what you think. And we're going to come up to this amazing run, which we'll get at the end, and then we're going to compare how each of the pianists plays that run. Here we go. Great recording. There's so much space in it. This is great. We're building up to this incredible run. Here we come. Here we go. Isn't that great? And when you've got that loud, I haven't got it very loud today, that big timpani boom that fills your whole room with a sonic boom, it's even louder at the end of the first movement. So that's Julius Katchen. For me, I still love it. So maybe I'm still biased. Maybe I haven't moved on from that very early recording. But let's just hear Katchen playing again that run, just the run itself, so we get an idea of that, so we can compare it with the others. Listen. All right, that's Katchen. All right, now I've got another pianist for you, Arturo Benedetti Michelangeli. Now, Michelangeli was very famous in the 50s. He was a renowned pianist, very enigmatic. He was considered to be technically one of the most brilliant ever, very, very precise. So I thought it might be interesting to introduce him here to see how he, in 1957, would handle this run. And here we go. All right? Okay, it's not that tight compared to Katchen, is it? But it's interesting nonetheless. So that obviously brings us now to Argerich. How is Argerich going to perform this live? Let's see how she manages it. Interesting. It's tight. I think we can just hear this one more time. Here we go. It's impressive, isn't it? Technically, it's not that difficult. Would be for me, of course. But for a really competent concert pianist, this is not the most difficult run. It's not a really difficult leaps or anything. It's just got to be clean. That's the thing. So now, I thought to end this first movement, which I forgot to tell you, it's got a rather unusual timing convention. It's called Allegramente, which basically means nimbly or lightly or even joyfully. It's not often used as far as I know. I know that Beethoven uses it on a bagatelle, I think, but it's not commonly used. Allegramente, anyway. So to finish this first movement, I thought I would bring in Helene Grimaud, a French pianist, and she's playing with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, conducted by David Zinman, and this is from 1997. And she has this beautiful sense of rhythm and control, and I think she's sounding really magnificent here. Let's hear Helene take us to the end of the first movement. That's how the first movement ends. It's exciting. But what we've all been waiting for, of course, is the second movement. Adagio, Assai. Assai means very. Adagio means slow, very slow. And we're going to go back to Zimmerman with Pierre Boulez for the opening of the second movement. And here we go. this 3/4 movement, did you see how Zimmerman slowed it back a little bit just to make that emphasis? Absolutely brilliant. But of course the piano is playing on its own here. And the orchestra entry, sometimes when I'm listening to this piece, I listen to it as a piece and I'm not thinking about, is it piano solo, is it orchestra? Because the way that they blend together is just so perfect. Here's Zimmerman again, but just a little bit further in on the same movement. And it's just the continuation of this solo passage where the orchestra comes in. Take a listen to this. Absolutely magical. Now, what I want to do is just play you just the first opening bars one more time by Zimmerman, and then we can compare them with how some of the other pianists play them. Listen to just those opening bars, how that's played. Listen. And now, what we will do, I'm going to play you exactly the same with Michelangeli. Or Michelangeli, I should say. See how he picks out some notes harder than others, and the others really, really, really gently. There's this thing, isn't there, which I've mentioned before, that when the pianist is playing, sometimes they want to play really, really softly, and there is the danger that it won't sound. In the recording studio, you can kind of get away with it, especially today in the digital age, because you can just re-record that note and drop it in, or re-record that section. But of course, live, it's dangerous. So I think it's interesting now to hear how Martha Argerich plays this movement, just that very same opening sequence. Now, one of the things we want to look out for here is that, in my opinion, it's extremely different, but you won't need me to tell you that. she's expanding and contracting the phrasing. Just listen to the timing here. That's so beautiful, isn't it? That timing is so unique. She glides it through, and the audience was totally silent. Listen. Can you imagine a concert hall full? Some are coming a little bit earlier than you think, and others a little bit later. So delicate, so delicate, so beautiful. I would have loved to have been in the audience in that concert. It would have been fantastic. So I suggest now we go back to Bernstein. We haven't heard from him for a little while, and see how he would handle this opening of this second movement. See how it goes. It's very different, isn't it? I don't want to say anything negative about it because it's the wonderful Leonard Bernstein, and he was largely very responsible for making sure that this concerto got played and everything. But you can see the difference between. But we still have two more to go. We've got Helene Grimaud, and see how she opens this. Again, very, very differently. Such simple notes, but so difficult to play. Very, very lyrical, very, very lyrical. Quite different from Bernstein. I mean, you couldn't have them further apart. But we've got one more, and you've guessed it already, it's going to be Julius Katchen, because this is the one that I kind of grew up with. And you imagine this record was given to me by an ex-flame when you're 16 years old. This was something very, very beautiful, very special. She didn't actually like classical music at all. She was into Daryl Hall and John Oates, actually, which I went to see them live. It was quite fun, but I digress. Let's just listen to Julius Katchen with the same thing. He's really following the timing, and I think it's really beautiful. And it shows that sometimes following that score, following that rhythm can work too. You don't always need to add lots of slowing down and speeding up and changing the rhythm and the phrasing. You don't always need to do that. Let's stay with him for a little while, where the orchestra entry is. This is Katchen, where the orchestra entry comes in after this phrase. See what you think of this. Now this is the part where I mentioned, I don't know if you noticed, how the flute gave way to the oboe and then onto the clarinet. It's so beautiful. And that's what forms this wonderful, wonderful work. And even when things are repeated, the orchestration changes so that it's not a straight repeat like you would have in Mozart's period. The orchestration changes, so you hear the same thing again, but the colours are different. And that's what makes this such a masterful, masterful piece of music. Now, just beyond from here, there is a kind of rainbow or waterfall moment. You feel the music build, and then there's this beautiful release. And we're going to go back to Zimmerman to hear that, to listen to the Zimmerman recording for where this wonderful phrase comes in. Again, so beautiful. Hear it build in the strings. Isn't that wonderful? How Ravel chooses the English horn, or the cor anglais, as the English call it, to accompany the piano there on that beautiful moment. Let's see how Bernstein handles this, because Bernstein is obviously conducting himself on this at the same time. So that relationship's got to really, really work. We'll just take it from where the cor anglais comes in just before that. Okay. And now I'm going to play Martha Argerich. See? Now the thing to watch out for here is to notice how silently she plays in certain points. She'll go loud and then very quiet. It's very, very subtle. She's really making the most of this interplay between orchestra and piano. Hear this. Isn't that wonderful? How it's almost like sunlight going behind a cloud. You know, there's moments where, oh, and then it comes back, and yet the cor anglais stays exactly the same. And it's that wonderful moment where the piano is accompanying the cor anglais, and another moments which is coming back, it's like the cor anglais is accompanying the piano. And that is the genius of this work, and of Ravel, of course. So what I'm going to do is just going to move a little bit further, because this kind of thematic piece comes back one more time. And I'm going to stay with Martha Argerich for this moment, just so that we can sort of stay in the same mood and phrasing to hear this. This is a little bit further into the second movement, of course. And we're back into this very much 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now I want to go to Grimaud, Helena Grimaud, to hear how she's going to handle this very, very beautiful part of the second movement. See the timing? So different. Now, I want to take you back to Michelangeli, who recorded this in 1957, which, when you think about it, is only, 26 years after the piece was written. Because although Ravel was thinking about the work in 1906. He didn't actually get to start it until 1913, and he had picked up lots of influences of music as he travelled in the US and brought in elements of his Basque past, Spanish past. And so in 1929, he started writing it properly. He had to finish off the one for the left hand because a famous pianist lost his right hand during the First World War. So he wrote a piece of music just for the left hand, which is technically very, very difficult. And so I think it's interesting to see how did Michelangeli actually handle this, what we can call it sort of the waterfall moment. Let's just have a quick listen. You know what? This recording is incredible, isn't it? When you think of it, it's 1957. The quality of it is really, really good. Okay, now that leads us to the end of the first movement. And I thought for the first ending the first movement, I'd like to go back to Leonard Bernstein because there's this trill figure that is needed, and all pianists can do this for a long time, but this is so important for Leonard Bernstein because he's conducting the orchestra and playing at the same time. And I think this ending is actually, in a very straight and correct way, very beautiful. See what you think. Just taking it up now. Isn't that wonderful? So that's the second movement. We can move in our seats now and have a sip of water. I'm just getting over a cold at the moment. And then we're ready for the third movement. Now the third movement is quite short actually. As I said, this whole piece is only like 22 minutes. It may seem longer because I've broken everything up into so many parts. But the third movement again is marked Presto, which obviously means very fast, and it's exciting. It's going to pull you out of this very beautiful place that we've been to, but it's exciting. And I thought, well, why not? Let's start with Julius Katchen in the Kingsway Hall with that great sounding hallway. I don't know if you noticed it actually in the earlier, when I played it earlier in the quiet section of the slow movement, that you could actually hear members of the orchestra sort of fiddling or moving or whatever. It's incredible that the discipline wasn't even tighter. I know the hall is very noisy, so the slightest movement makes it difficult. But when I was recording a Mozart Piano Concerto with a young orchestra, we actually rehearsed the silence for the quiet passages and between the moments for the pianist. They actually had to rehearse it. And I remember one poor girl, she dropped a pencil right at the moment when we were recording, and everybody looked at her, and it's an awful moment for her. I felt so sorry. The world could have swallowed up. But it's an important part, keeping quiet in these when you're playing, especially on live recordings. Here we go, Julius Katchen, opening the third movement. Get ready, it's a bit loud and furious. Now, this is a really exciting last few minutes, this last movement. And let's hear Michelangeli opening with this piece. Now, he's in his element here, I have to say. This is really, you can almost feel the joy he's having playing. Listen to this. So precise. Yeah, he's just so precise there. It's incredible, isn't it? But I think it's what is important. We'll go to here now, where I call the impossible run. There's a run he has to do where he has to sort of fly up the keyboard. Now, again, technically not that difficult, but it's got to work, and the orchestra's got to be with you. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how each of the pianists has it. Listen to Michelangeli with this run. Here we go. Yeah, I mean, all the pianists, once they get to that point when they're going off on that run at the end, that I think they sort of, a lot of them accelerate, because I think they're just so pleased to get over that part, because it's just got to be so tight with the orchestra, of course. Now, let's hear Leonard Bernstein and see how he copes with this run. Here we go. This is Leonard Bernstein. Second time. See what I mean? They're sort of running off there. It's such an exciting piece. I've never heard it live. I've heard it live, but not with the full orchestra, and it's something that's definitely on my bucket list. Let's go to Grimaud, Helen Grimaud. Now, we can expect that she will take this slower, because I think of all the pianists, she generally likes to play this whole piece a bit slower. But let's just see. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, whoosh, off at the end. But that was very, very different, wasn't it? The timing was different. She emphasizes different parts of the cluster of notes that she has to play. So that leaves us with Katchen. Let's see how Julius Katchen handles this. Wow, it's amazing. It's just a fantastic work. So we get on to Zimmerman now, of course. Now we can expect the Zimmerman recording to be a little bit darker. We can expect it to be, yeah, rhythmically tighter, because Boulez is really keeping this firmly under control. Let's just see. You see, that timing is perfect, isn't it? And it's actually very reassuring, with that darker, warmer sound from the Deutsche Grammophon engineers and orchestra. It's really very, very special. That just leaves us, I guess, with Martha Argerich to see how she's going to handle that run. And of course, technically, all of our pianists can handle it. No problem. It's not really a struggle. It's just when you're live and you're sitting in front of a couple of thousand people, which you probably would be in Lugano. I don't know how big that concert hall is there. Beautiful place, Lugano. But let's see how she handles it. Wait for it. She really flies off at that point. So the conductor's got to be watching her. It's incredible. But I talked a lot, didn't I, about, well, not a lot perhaps, but I've talked about the importance of the orchestra and the piano and it being one work and being under control. And I think in this movement, it's worth reflecting on that a little bit. It's a very short movement, but just listen to how the colours of this orchestra and how it combines the depth of what they're doing here, and the timing and the control that's required. With I'm going to stick with Argerich for this section. We're just moving slightly further on this last movement. So, yeah, I think it's just a nice thing to hear. And the poor bassoon that has to play here. I'm glad I'm not a bassoonist. It's such a great piece of music, really. But when we look now at Katchen in this big Kingsway Hall, which has a similar acoustic to the live recording we just heard from Martha Argerich, but have a listen to this. Look how prominent the other instruments are. I mean, for me, that's just fantastic. I mean, the orchestra there, the colours, the recording, very deep bass. I don't know if you can pick that up on YouTube, but it's phenomenal. Really, that's just lovely. I'm just going to move forward now to Zimmerman, because, you know, the Zimmerman and Boulez, this, as I talked about, this dark recording. Listen to this and listen to the pizzicatos in the strings. And see what I mean. See if you're aligned with me, if you agree. I have to say, you know, that for me is probably my favourite recording, because it's so, I just like the way that the timing is so strict and yet all the emotion is there. Some of the flamboyance of Martha Argerich is not there. The beauty of Katchen in the second movement is not there. But the great thing about today is that we've got streaming, so we have all of these. If you're lucky enough to have an abonnement, what do you call it? A subscription, sorry, for streaming, you have all of these here. You don't have to just go out and buy one and maybe borrow another one. So I want to just end this piece now, because we're nearly at the end of this last movement, and I'm just going to play you the last couple of bars from Bernstein, and you'll notice that actually on that very last beat the orchestra's not quite together, and I sometimes wonder why they didn't retake it. Maybe just ran out of studio time and budgets were really tight, to be honest. And maybe they just didn't care. It doesn't matter. They've had a lot of fun. It's a great recording, and it's the passion and energy that's there. Listen to Bernstein end the couple of bars, because it's pretty exciting. Did you hear that? Did you notice it? It's there. We can play it one more time, actually. Let's just try it one more time just to see if you can hear that. It's sort of run. Because when you compare it now with Katchen and in these last bars, listen to this. Isn't that fantastic? It's really just a great sound. Well, we can go on to Michelangeli. Why not? I'm having fun here. I hope you are too. I know it's a long video, but here we go. Michelangeli, and see how he takes the last 5 beats. Yeah, it's nice. There's no big thump in the recording. It's together. But that then leaves us with Zimmerman and Boulez. Now, we will expect a very, very, very tight ending to this, won't we? Let's see how they handle it. It's just perfect. Did you notice that the little snare drum, it was like we're coming up to the sort of, I don't know how you to describe it, whether it's sort of like an execution or something, but let's listen one more time. I mean, the snare drum's playing through all of the other versions. You can go back and hear it, but it's really prominent here. Listen. That thump, it's just filled this whole listening room. It's tremendous. I hope it is picked up on YouTube. I really do, because the Sibelius speakers have just lost all their dust now. So I think to end this little talk, and I hope you've enjoyed it, we're going to play out with Martha Argerich playing us out, because it's a live version, and why shouldn't we? I think she deserves it. It's a great recording, and there are lots of them. I'm going to put links to all of these things in the description below. But here we go. Well, if you have been, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the music.